Up next is the tip of the week. This is a feature where we show you a trick or two on how to use some certain feature on your phone or some other feature in a given app. And now for this week's episode, here's your tip of the week.
And we close this episode with a tip of the week. And we revert to something we looked at last week in the Samsung accessibility settings. John shows us the Speak Aloud feature on the keyboard.
Hello. For this week's tip of the week, I'm going to be demonstrating an accessibility setting on Samsung devices called Speak Keyboard Input Aloud. This will give you the experience similar to direct touch typing if you've ever used that on an iPhone with VoiceOver. Some of the caveats here are that first, you need to be using a Samsung phone because this is a Samsung accessibility feature. Also, you need to be using Samsung's keyboard as your default keyboard. Also, you're going to need to turn off TalkBack when you want to use this feature. And finally, the setup is a little complicated, which is why I'm here to show you how to do it. So the first thing you're going to need to do to have this feature be available to you is switch your default keyboard to Samsung's keyboard. Right now mine is Gboard, and I'm in Telegram, and I have the keyboard on screen. I'm just going to hit switch input in the bottom left of the screen.
Switch input method. Button. Keyboard hidden. Choose input method. Not selected. Radio button. Samsung keyboard. Saved messages. English, US, QWERTY shown. Message. Edit box. Showing Samsung keyboard.
So now that we have Samsung's keyboard as our default, I'm going to go to the Settings app.
Keyboard hidden. Settings. Search settings. Button.
We'll scroll down until we find Accessibility.
Apps. Default apps. Apps. General management. Language and accessibility. Vision, hearing, dexterity.
Go here.
Accessibility. Navigate up. Button.
Now we're going to go to
Vision enhancements.
Vision Enhancements. It's one of the first things near the top.
Vision enhancements. Navigate up. Button.
And in here, I'm just going to scroll all the way to the bottom because it's one of the last items on screen.
Speak keyboard input allowed. Disabled while TalkBack is on. Disabled.
So as you can see, it's not letting us in because we are using TalkBack. And that's because TalkBack already speaks keyboard input allowed, so why would you want to use this? But obviously the reason we want to use this is because TalkBack is slow when it comes to typing. So for those of us that are really good at typing, which, full disclosure, I'm not one of them, this is a way for us to type without TalkBack turned on and still be able to hear what we're doing. So what you're going to have to do is turn off TalkBack and tap in the spot on the screen where this is. So I'm just going to find it again with my finger.
Speak keyboard input allowed. Disabled while TalkBack is on. Disabled.
I'm going to do my shortcut to turn off TalkBack.
TalkBack off.
I'm going to tap in that same spot. Turn TalkBack on again.
TalkBack on.
And let's see if we're on the screen.
Speak keyboard input allowed. Window speak keyboard input allowed.
Okay, so I touched near the top, so we are here. Now I'm going to swipe right.
Speak keyboard input allowed. Off switch. Disabled.
And again, same thing, it's disabled for the same reason, so we're going to need to do this one more time.
TalkBack off.
You'll feel a vibration when the switch is turned on, so you'll know you hit it.
TalkBack on. Speak keyboard input allowed. On. Switch. Disabled.
So as you can see, it is now turned on, and the rest of this we can do the regular way with TalkBack.
Speak keyboard input allowed shortcut.
Here's the shortcut. So just as a side note, If you didn't want to have to do all this stuff I just did and you don't care to customize the settings in here in any way, you just want to turn it on, you can turn it on by going into accessibility settings, then going to advanced and finding the shortcut you want to assign it to. It can just be temporarily, but you can assign this accessibility service called Speak Keyboard Input Aloud to a shortcut. You can use the shortcut to turn it on, and then even from there you can just leave it on and unassign the shortcut if you want to. But if you want to customize anything in here, you're going to have to do that workaround to turn off TalkBack to get in here. Another side note, if you have another screen reader installed like Jishuo, you might want to just turn that on temporarily and go in here and do all of this just the regular way with that screen reader, assuming you're not using the TalkBack spoofing version of Jishuo. You can just come in here and change all of these settings like I'm about to do.
Off Speak Keyboard Input Aloud shortcut. Switch.
So I do not have it assigned to a shortcut. I'm just going to leave it on all the time.
What to read. Heading.
This is what type of feedback you want.
Not selected. Radio button. Characters. Not selected. Radio button. Words. Selected. Radio button. Characters and words.
I have mine set to characters and words. I believe the default was characters only.
Capital letters. Heading.
Now how you want your capital letters spoken or not spoken.
Not selected. Radio button. Do nothing. Not selected. Radio button. Say capital. Not selected. Radio button. Change pitch. Selected. Radio button. Play sound.
So I like to hear a sound for capital letters. We have a couple more options on this page.
Read deleted characters aloud. On. Switch. Phonetic alphabet. When reading letters aloud, use the corresponding word from the phonetic alphabet instead of the letter name. Off switch.
And those are all the settings for customizing this. Now that we have it set up, let's go back to Telegram and start typing.
Saved messages. English, US, QWERTY shown. Editing. Message. Edit box. Showing Samsung keyboard.
So in order to do this, again, you have to be using Samsung's keyboard. And you have to turn off TalkBack to do it. So use whatever shortcut you want to turn TalkBack off, and then you can start typing on the keyboard. Keep in mind that the volume at which it's going to talk is tied to the media volume and not the accessibility volume. So if you have your media volume turned all the way down, it will seem like it's not working. And again, if you have it turned all the way up, it's going to be very loud. So just keep that in mind before you do it.
TalkBack off.
And something that I want to remind you of is the fact that while you're doing this, you do not have TalkBack enabled. So be very careful, because if you miss the keyboard and hit something outside the keyboard, for example, the send button in your conversation, it will send the message. So make sure you're very precise when using this method. Now that I have TalkBack off, I'm just going to quickly type something.
T. H. I. S. This space. I. S. Is space. A space. T. E. S. T. Test space.
And thanks to the power of editing, I got that exactly right on my first try. Like I said, I'm not good at this, but a lot of people are. And now I'm just going to clear the field by holding delete.
Space delete.
And it's as easy as that. I'm going to turn TalkBack on again.
TalkBack on.
A couple of things I wanted to point out. As you heard when I was typing, it made typing sounds, and there was a different sound for the capital letter. If you have Do Not Disturb turned on, you won't hear those sounds, so just be aware of that. And also, something I'm not a fan of is, as you noticed, when I put in a space, it would read the word followed by space, so it would say, this space is space, instead of just saying the word. And I thought that might be because I had characters and words enabled to be read back, but even if you only have it set to words and not characters, it still announces the space. So that's just kind of an annoying thing that you will probably have to live with. I don't know if it'll ever be different. Anyway, that was a quick demo of using Samsung's accessibility feature called Speak Keyboard Input Aloud. Thanks for listening.
I just wanted to say that in that demo where I was having the issue where it would say space after each word, after talking to the podcast crew about it, Kareen, for whatever reason, on her Galaxy A55, it was not doing it. It was behaving how it should and just saying the word when you put the space in there instead of saying the word followed by space, which is completely unnecessary in my opinion. Is that right, Kareen?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I don't know if, are you on 6.1.1 or 6.1?
6.1.
Okay, so we're using the same One UI version. And for me, it's not saying space after the word. I tried to use the same configuration. So characters and words, but it's not saying space at all after the word, which is good, in my opinion. I think it's better to not say it. Well, some may argue that the space is a character and it should be like it's a key and it should be announced. Yeah, it's right, but it's not necessary because when you hear the word, you will know that the space was pressed actually. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's the...
And of course, some may argue, you mean Warren is the only one who would argue.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But actually, I don't know if it will be, who will be getting the update and how it will change. I think that one of us is using maybe a newer version of a Samsung keyboard. We didn't actually check, so we should check. And I think that one of us will have the behavior changed. So I hope that you will be the one and it will stick to the thing of not saying the space after the word.
So I have to apologize to Warren. A thing I've literally never done in 3 years because I normally abuse him. I was checking this very briefly on a very noisy subway train. If it is set to characters and words, I think it should say space. If it's set to words, it absolutely should not. But if it is set to characters and words, then yes, it should say space.
My question is, if you hit the space bar without typing anything, would it say space or not?
Yes.
There, bingo.
But my argument is
now let me finish my thought.
Okay, go
ahead. So
ahead.
the whole idea is that it's intended to speak what you've just acted on. So it's no sin for it to say space. So it's just following the logic, and you don't need a 101 in logic to understand that it needs to say the space, unless, of course, there's a place in there that says I can customize it to not say space after I hit space after a word. If not, it is just doing what it's supposed to do logically.
For characters and words, I think that's right. Absolutely right.
But my argument is it should say space when you put the space in and then say the word. But what it's doing is it's saying the word and then saying space, which is it's not. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, but it just spoke that key aloud. The whole idea is that whatever you touch, it should say what you just did. So if we say it shouldn't say space and you mistakenly hit a space where you're not supposed to, you want it to just leave a space there and not let you know that you actually inserted a space in the wrong place.
But when it says the word, the word, you know you've put a space because it's not going to just say a word for no reason.
Yeah, no, but John, the idea is that it should let you what you've touched on that keyboard. That's where I'm arguing from.
There's no key on the keyboard that is a complete word. So when it says a complete word,
No, no,
you press
no, no.
space.
No, but
Come
this
on.
is set,
No,
this
no,
is
no,
set
no.
to characters
No,
though.
no, you
If
guys
he does that on
misunderstanding.
if he does that on words, I would agree with you. But characters and words,
It does it on words for me.
No,
I
no.
think.
What I'm saying,
it shouldn't do it on words.
hear me out. What I'm saying is that the whole idea is to speak aloud whatever you touch on that keyboard. That's the whole idea. And so there's no reason why it shouldn't say space, unless, like I said, if there's a configuration in there that one could say, okay, I've kind of gotten used to the keyboard and there are certain things I don't want to heard spoken out loud, then you could do so. But if not, it's doing logically what it's supposed to do. There's no argument here.
But John has just raised the thing, and I was under a misapprehension when I answered the thing on the group earlier in the week. If it should not say it when key echo is set to words, obviously, right? That would be weird.
Yeah, so the problem is this is not a design thing. It's what's happening I could be wrong because I didn't develop the thing, but I feel like what's happening is it's taking all of the characters plus the space and reading it as a word. Because sometimes it won't say the word and a space, but sometimes it'll combine it phonetically, and it sounds really weird. So it's a bug. They did not do this intentionally, but you guys are saying they should do this intentionally, and it's fine that we disagree.
Well, if I want to be objective here, I should admit that they are right about this, because actually it should read the space because it's a character at the end of the day. But what should be done is that it should be before the word, as you said, Ron. So it should say space and then the word. But the problem will be that it will be less convenient, especially for those who want to type quickly and who want to hear the word. So they should hear every time the space and then the word. So it will be less convenient. But according to logic and objectivity, I think, they are right about it.
Just to follow up, because you mentioned it's probably the keyboard. We'll have to look into the keyboard version because I did test it with multiple TTS engines and it still did it. So it's not something related to the Samsung TTS. It's something to do with the keyboard, most likely.
Yeah, I also did. So I can confirm that I also tried with other engines and it's the same behavior, no spaces.